In the modern era, Yuta Akotsu is one of the strongest sorcerers still standing. While even before, many have already considered him to be second to only Satoru Gojo, he's only given us a bigger reason to never sleep on Yuta Akotsu. He's also just now finally arrived at Shinjuku, the city where Yuta and Sukuna is currently wreaking havoc. Yuta's already been named before as one of Jujutsu High's heavy-hitting fighters. Even if Satoru Gojo went down, Kenjaku always told Sukuna that he should pay close attention to Yuta Akotsu. Yuta is about to show everybody why he's one of the chosen people to carry on and take on the legacy of Satoru Gojo. It's finally time for another special grade to join the fight. It's time for Yuta to show everybody what Gojo meant by having the potential to reach a grade above special grade. In the past, many including myself have called out Yuta for simply not doing enough. Some have even gone far enough to say that Yuta Akotsu is a fraud. But in this video, I want to give everybody a fair reason to pay close attention to Yuta Akotsu, and also why Yuta Akotsu is about to massively grow in power and completely break his own limits. If you would enjoy more Jujutsu Kaisen content like this, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe, because YouTube tells me that 99% of you guys who watch my videos just aren't subscribed, so please subscribe and comment on some video ideas you want to see be done down below. As of chapter 248, Yuta's now finally fighting alongside Yuji and the rest of Jujutsu High. Originally, it was only Higuruma, Hakari, and Yuji who were down in Shinjuku, and Maki and Yuta were nowhere to be seen. Despite Kenjaku thinking that Maki Zenin, Kinji Akari, and Yuta Akotsu would all form the team of the heavy-hitting fighters to be the first people to take on Sukuna when Gojo went down, it was Higuruma and Yuji that took the role instead. While Akari is currently taking on Urame, and Maki Zenin is... I have absolutely no clue. But Yuta was actually busy somewhere else. While Takaba went along to fight Kenjaku, there was actually a plan to sneak attack Kenjaku. Yuta took advantage of Takaba's curse technique and quickly got around Kenjaku. Despite him realizing that Yuta was right behind him and even charging up an anti-gravity based curse technique, Yuta still managed to blitz Kenjaku and completely travel around him, leading to Kenjaku losing his head in just one swing. With Takaba's help, of course, Yuta made taking down Kenjaku look simple. If you want to compare his performance and another special grade like Yuki Tsukumo, it's immediately clear that what Yuta did is no small feat. Even with the help of both Choso and Tengen, while fighting in Tengen's own barrier, Yuki still ended up losing against Kenjaku. It is fair to mention that Yuta did have some help from Takaba, but the fact that we've seen others try and fail to reach the same goal really shows how impressive this was for Yuta to pull this off. It's also later revealed that the authorization to start the merger between Tengen and humanity has actually altered. Now it's Megami Fushiguro, or more obviously Ryomen Sukuna, who has the authorization and the permission to start the merger between Tengen and humanity at any time he wants. He now has complete access, probably because Kenjaku's gone. Also, while considering that Yuta's now on the battlefield in Shinjuku, it means that even though it was off screen, Yuta's plan to finish off Kenjaku went smoothly. Even though he had to make what's normally a 7-day journey on foot, Yuta still makes it to the battlefield. Just like any other special grade, Yuta joins the fight more than ready to take on Ryomen Sukuna, and he starts off rip with an explosive level of power. Yuta of course apologizes to Yuji for coming in so late, but it's clear from then on that having Akotsu present raises Jujutsu High's odds dramatically. Wasting no time, Yuta dashes at Sukuna with another strike from his blade, but Sukuna blocks the strike with just 3 of his fingers before telling Yuta and everyone else listening to get their acts together. He tells them that if they don't exercise Sukuna right now, everyone whose lives that they're protecting are as good as gone. Yuta then calls out Rika, who quickly slams her hand down on the King of Curses. But even after Sukuna tells them to basically try harder, Yuta only partially manifests Rika. Against Kenjaku, it's not really clear if Yuta had Rika manifested whatsoever. I mean, without any indication, it's all completely possible that Yuta did something this crazy in base. While always having the ability to call on Rika's power, there's a pretty big difference between the times that he is connected to Rika compared to when he isn't. Making the connection, and of course fully manifesting Rika, makes him an entirely different threat even against other special grades. When she's fully manifested, Yuta's got as much of Rika's power as he can get. Rika acts as the external storage for basically the entirety of Yuta's arsenal. Cursed energy, cursed tools, and even cursed techniques are all add-ons to his arsenal when Rika is present. While he still has a massive tank of cursed energy even in base, it's nothing compared to the pool that he has access to when he's connected to Rika. Way back in Volume 0, Geto says that Rika holds an endless amount of cursed energy. Despite taking on multiple special grade cursed spirits in the past, and even exercising some to absorb with cursed spirit manipulation, he considers Rika the queen of all curses, and he even thinks that her cursed energy pool is surreal. When using his cursed technique copy, it seems that Yuta can clone the technique of any sorcerer, while for anyone else, having multiple cursed techniques is just too much strain on the brain. He can use Rika like an external storage device, so his brain doesn't burst according to Yuki Tsukumo. Along with holding extra curse tools, when Yuta's connected to Rika, he's an entirely different monster. It's insane to think that even against Sukuna, Rika isn't even fully manifested, and in base alone, Yuta is still insanely strong and definitely worthy of the title even before taking out Kenjaku. Back when Gojo was up against Maharaga, Agito, and and Sukuna all at once, Yuta was already ready back then to head out and go join the fight and go take on both Shikigami. Even back then, Yuta was confident that he and Rika would be enough to relieve some pressure off Gojo, and Yuta was sure that taking on Agito, but impressively Mahoraga, wouldn't be a problem. We're talking about the same Mahoraga that took not one, but two Black Flash punches from Gojo and even blocked the second shot when he was guarding Sukuna. But even if adapting to blue made taking those shots easier for Mahoraga, there's still saw through Gojo's punches, and on top of that amplified by Black Flash. Yuta's pretty confident that he and Rika would be more than capable of taking on not just Mahoraga, but Agito at the same time to relieve some pressure off Gojo. While some value the confidence of a character more than another, and yes, it definitely isn't fair to just say because Yuta thinks he can do this, he should be able to do this, but there are some things to consider. It's fair to take in the possibility that Yuta definitely had a fair bit of calculations done, engaged himself and his potential opponent's power before making a plan like this and going out and putting it on the table. It's also fair to remember that Yuta thinks that he can relieve some pressure off of Gojo. That doesn't mean that Yuta believes that he can exercise Mahoraga or Agito, but at least he temporarily take away the pressure that they're putting on Gojo and force it onto himself. Hikari has said before that even though he's a gloomy kid, Yuta is a man that sticks to his word, and you can't help but respect that. After all, even if Yuta's never fought Mahoraga or Agito himself, he can clearly see Gojo being pressured by the Shikigamis, which is why he felt compelled to join the fight in the first place. And seeing somebody pressure Satoru Gojo and choosing to go fight them anyways would give anyone the indication that they're pretty strong. It's Kashimo, Hikari, and Kusakabe who refuse to go along with the plan to avoid burdening Gojo with another ally to protect, which is why Yuta never went along to help. Now that Yuta is finally up against Sukuna, it can be a great opportunity for him to rapidly grow in power. Back when Higuruma had gone up against Sukuna, his performance had greatly improved all throughout the fight. He learned both domain amplification and reverse curse technique in the middle of the fight, and it's because of his raw unbound talent that even rival Satoru Gojo that pushed Higuruma this far. When it comes to a sorcerer having the high potential to grow like Higuruma, Yuta is by no means an exception when talking about having the potential to reach those at the top. Gojo said before that he's one of those who has the potential to surpass himself one day and even break the current limit of power. He says that a few of his students will one day reach a rank far above special grade, and of course Yuta is one of them. All throughout his first year at Jujutsu High, it's easy to point out how crazy it is that Yuta can grow this quickly, especially while having no experience with Jujutsu whatsoever before entering the school. In just 1 year, he mastered manipulating his cursed energy into everything from blades to his strikes, and he even advanced so far that he picked up reverse curse technique. In just his first year at the school, Yuta was already capable of healing others with positive energy and completely controlling Rika by the second time that she became fully manifested. Even after losing his rank and title once the curse of Rika Orimoto was freed, he quickly worked all the way back up to special grade. Yuta's main problem is that his growth is slowly reaching a breaking point and he needs to be pushed beyond his current capabilities. If there's any opponent to push Yuta to his limits, there's no better person than Sukuna. Seeing as Kenjaku obviously couldn't, it's gonna take the strongest sorcerer to really push Yuta beyond his current capabilities. Way back in Sendai Colony, Oro actually mentioned something to Yuta about how he's quickly approaching his limits. Oro says that she's actually seen it before, the level of power that a few in history can actually compete with. What surpasses the horizon of cursed spirits, strong fighters, and even sorcerers is an overwhelming aggression that disregards all else like a calamity. It's obvious that the sorcerer that Oro's describing is Ryomen Sukuna, the one who is seen to overcome that limit that's quickly going to hold Yuta back, but more interestingly is Yuta's current opponent. When Hikari faces off against Urame, he mentions earlier that Yuta had given him a similar talk about humanity that he's currently hearing from Urame. Urame mentioned to Hikari that what holds sorcerers back in the modern day is their humanity. They have this obsession with trying to remain human. Urame says that they try to hold on to their humanity, constantly telling themselves to avoid destroying the very thing that can be so easily crushed by overwhelming power. It's that fear that comes with being human that holds them back and makes them weak. Both Urame and Oro are basically saying the same thing. Yuta's reaching his limit because he's also part of the modern era sorcerers who reserve themselves back from destroying the very thing keeping them human, but what's also limiting Yuta to his current capabilities. Both Urame and Oro know what it takes to reach the heights of the strongest, but so will Yuta Akotsu. I don't doubt that he's been thinking back to Oro's words. After all, why else would he speak to Hikari about his own humanity? Yuta's slowly gonna figure out what Oro was talking about. After all, his current opponent is exactly what Oro is advising Yuta to become. Going up against Sukuna, someone who surpassed those exact same limits that Oro was talking about, will show Yuta how to grow just like he did with Higuruma. Sukuna is asking Yuta to put up a good fight. He wants his own limits pushed just as much as Yuta does. It's those moments where a sorcerer is pushed against the edge that they begin to grow rapidly. When the only option left is to win and to bet on success, that's when even special grades can grow. When Megami was cornered by the Finger Bearer, he chose to expand Chimera Shadow Garden. Despite never before being capable, that's when he awakened his domain expansion. When Yuji's only option to beat Mahito Naruto came down to landing a Black Flash, he took the chance by betting on himself and landed another Black Flash despite the Sparks of Black not choosing who to bless. In Shibuya, when Gojo was cornered by the disaster curses, his split-second domain was an all-or-nothing bet on himself and his ability to overcome the odds despite everything holding him back in the moment. Just like Gojo had told Megami, it's about envisioning a stronger version of yourself who's already broken their limits that leads to victory. Playing it safe as a team can only push you so far. Being a Jujutsu sorcerer is an individual sport. If it takes betting on yourself and your own future that you've envisioned where you win is the only option, it's perfectly okay to be selfish. There's no better person to teach Yuta and act as the live example for surpassing those limits other than Ryomen Sukuna himself. He's everyone's purest example of the mindset it takes to overcome the challenges that Yuta faces. In the last month, nearly everyone in Shinjuku at the moment has gotten stronger in one way or another. Kusakabe, Yuji, Choso, Higuruma, and even Ino have all gotten stronger. Sukuna mentions that in the last month, every single one of them have upgraded their fundamentals in cursed energy strengthening. Even Yuji's grown massively, learning how to perform reverse curse technique from Shoko in just 1 month. With everyone else growing massively, I don't think that Yuta is any exception. I'm more than expecting this Akotsu to be stronger than before. While only now just joining the fight, Yuta's already became the biggest threat to Sukuna. There's a reason why Kenjaku mentions him specifically when he's talking about the strongest that the school has to offer. Everyone watching is thinking the same thing. Without Satoru Gojo, it's time for the next special grade to step up, and who better than Yuta Akotsu?